It is done. I have read 50 books without buying anything new. Well, sort of. Hello everyone and welcome to Dutch Greybeard. The lighting is a bit unpredictable at the moment because the sun and the clouds are playing hide and seek, so we'll have to deal with it. On March the 21st of this year, I posted my Read What You Own Challenge video. Now, about 8 months later, while many booktubers have just started their Read What You Own Challenge, I have completed my own challenge. Truth be told, I may have been a little creative in bending my own initial rules. Just a bit. Ollie from the channel Criminolly inspired me to do this challenge where you read a certain number of books you already own without buying anything new in the meantime. Ollie sets the goal of his challenges. Yes, he has done it multiple times and has recently started the challenge anew to 100 books. I can only wish that I was such a fast reader as Ollie, but the truth of the matter is, I'm not. With my slow pace of reading, I can manage about 60 books a year, at most. Still, such a challenge was needed because when I started it, I had around 360 unread books on my shelves. Instead of committing myself to reading 100 books I already owned without buying anything new, I cut that number in half. I would read 50 books that were sitting on my shelves already. Just to give you some idea of my unhinged buying frenzy at the time, here are some numbers. From the beginning of my journey into fantasy, halfway into January of 2023, up until the beginning of my challenge on March 21 of this year, I bought 283 books, 90% of which were fantasy. On my Amazon wishlist stood 119 titles at the time. To make things a bit more interesting, I pledged to donate €50 in an imaginary jar for each month this challenge lasted. I estimated that I had spent €200 on average each month on books. My train of thought was that I would save a lot of money that I otherwise would have spent on buying books. During my challenge, I posted 2 updates. One at the beginning of June, saying that I was doing just fine on the challenge. I found it fairly easy to not buy books. Every time other booktubers inspired me to add books or authors to my TBR, I simply put them on my ever-growing Amazon wishlist, which at that time had grown from 119 to 205 books. I had read 13 books, not nearly as much as I had hoped, and I had to admit to having sinned. I'd bought 3 books second-hand. They're the 3 books in the first trilogy by Jenny Wirtz, The Cycle of Fire. I started reading Jenny Wirtz with her debut novel, Sorcerer's Legacy. I justified this buy for myself with the argument that I wanted to read her works in their publication order. I was convinced that I would continue reading her works during my challenge, which I haven't. My second update is from September 25, when things started to become a bit of a drag for me. Not that the not buying of books bothered me, although the itch of wanting to buy some became increasingly annoying. It was more my promise of donating to charity that got somewhat on my nerves. In the 6 months of my Read What You Own challenge at that point, my personal situation had changed. In that video I explained that I had lost 2 of my biggest clients, which took and still takes a huge bite out of my income. I had read 24 books at that point, so I wasn't even halfway. This was going way too slow to my liking. On top of that, I had to read 54 instead of the initial 50 books because the Jenny Wirtz books I had bought and because of a Dutch book I knew I was going to buy. In short, I felt like I was getting nowhere with this challenge. The only thing growing was my Amazon wishlist with 256 books at this point. The other positive, if you can call it that, is that I couldn't buy too many books anyway, because of my limited budget. Now, I am calling it quits. And I believe I can do so within the rules, thanks to, again, Ollie from Criminoli. In his latest challenge, he mentioned that a normal-sized book equals 250 pages, which is something I had been wondering about. The measure of this challenge, the number of books, may perhaps not be the most accurate measure. I did throw in a couple of shorter books, but overall I just kept on reading chunkers, because those are what I wanted to read. So, thanks to Ollie, I found my way out of my own challenge. And after doing the math, I was relieved to find the following numbers. The challenge will end on the day I finish reading Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, be it November 15 or 1 or 2 days later. I'm recording this on November 13, so I have a couple of days to go. So counting Oathbringer as well, I have read 33 books since starting this challenge. You can see all of them on this chart. Not even close to my initial goal of 50 books. Counting all the pages of those 33 books, I come to 14,950. If I take that measure, 250 pages equals one book, I would be at almost 60 books right now. When that number appeared in my calculator, I uttered a sigh of relief. I had read enough to finally close off this Read What You Own challenge. All in all, it has taken me 8 months. Even though the challenge started to become a drag these final months, I'm still very glad that I did it. I'm quite sure that without this challenge, I would have kept on buying books, way more than I can possibly read. On average, I would buy about 20 books each month. This means that without this challenge, I would have had 180 books more on my shelves that are full, as you can see already. That alone was worth doing this challenge. Those books now reside on my Amazon wishlist. And you know, the funny thing about this list is that it changes. Putting a book on this list is a completely carefree action. But often I look at some of the books on this list wondering why on earth I put them on there. So I take them off again, not missing out on anything. In September there were 257 books on this list, and now, 2 months later, there are 248. By postponing a buy, you automatically separate the wheat from the chaff. This was an eye-opening experience. I found that I didn't have to buy books, like I always thought. The heart of this challenge is absolutely enlightening. Adjust your focus to the books you already have, instead of running after all that's new. Shop your own shelves. So, now that I've finished my Read What You Own challenge, will I go back to buying 20 books a month? I honestly do not think I will. First of all, because of limited budget, but more importantly, I believe that I've learned to behave more realistic in buying books. I can recognize FOMO better now as something illusory. Should I miss out on something, it's not a big deal, because I have still hundreds of unread books on my shelf that I was afraid of missing out on earlier. This is an insight I've gained through this challenge, but only time will tell how this is going to pan out. Then we have my donation to charity to talk about. In my first video, I mentioned 3 charities that I care about most. These are the Ocean Cleanup, War Child, and the local food bank. I then promised that I would ask you on which charity the money in the jar will go to. I will put out a questionnaire very soon that will go up after this video has gone live. If I were to stick to my initial promise of 50 euros each month, the donation would amount to 400 euros at this point. Regarding the changes in my personal situation, that would not be very wise. More feasible at this moment for me is to donate half that amount, 200 euros. To me, that is still a lot of money, but it will be money well spent. Will I ever do this challenge again? Yes, I think I will. It's definitely refreshing and instructive in the sense that you are much more aware of your buying habits and you are less influenced by FOMO. I don't know when I will embark on another Read What You Own challenge. Perhaps next time I'll set myself a time goal. So nothing like an X number of books or pages I have to read, but simply not buying anything new for 3-4 months or half a year. That way I'm not pressured into choosing other books to read than I otherwise would, and I'll have a clear endpoint. Because another thing I've learned from this experience is that my joy in reading should trump any goal or pressure I set for myself. Thank you very much for watching this video. Until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.